One of the most effective ways of catching big carp on commercials, especially in the summertime, is a method feeder up to an island. It's a little bit of a forgotten method, excuse the pun, but I'm going to give you a few tips today to hopefully help you catch a few more big carp like this one. Pulling my arm off. Feels a good one. Oh, like beautiful go step. Go on. That is a cracker. Oh. Woohoo! What a stunning fish. Wow. I'm gonna hold her up. That is a corker. Look at that. I'm gonna show you how to catch a few of these. The reason why I choose a method feeder when I'm fishing up to an island is because it's really quick bait release, so you get an instant release of your bait. Because usually when you are fishing method up to an island, you're catching quite quickly, you're not waiting there for say 10-15 minutes for a bite. I've got a bit of a rule of thumb. If I'm fishing in water of say 1 to 3 foot, because usually when you are up to an island it is quite shallow, and I always like to fish as tight as possible, so I like that shallow water. Carp feed nice and confidently in shallow water, and that's where I'd always use a method feeder because of that quick bait release. If I was fishing in say 3, 4, 5 foot plus, I'd then choose a hybrid feeder, which as you can see has got sides on the feeder and it protects your bait a little bit more. So you can put your hook bait in the middle and it protects your bait, so it'll get down to the bottom and then release slower than a method feeder will. As you can see, water can get at every angle of the feeder, so that's why I choose a method feeder when I'm fishing in shallower water. Anything 3 foot plus, choose a hybrid. Anything lower than 3 foot, as in shallower, I'd always go for a method. Absolute screamer of a bite, that one. Love them bites when they fly around. And once I've landed this beauty of a carp, I'll show you how to prepare the bait that I'm using today. Oh, it's a lovely comment. Oh, go on. Yes. Because bait is one of the most important parts of any style of fishing, but especially this one, because you've got to get them micro pellets right. So I'll show you how to prepare them once I've unhooked this cracker. Woohoo! Lovely fish. Lovely common carp. Cracker. I'm going to show you how to sort some bait out now. Micro pellets are my go-to bait to actually mould around the method feeder. Carp especially absolutely love them. Here's my simple guide about how to prepare them properly, because a lot of people struggle with getting the right pellet consistency, and this is the best way that I've found to actually prepare them. So I've got some 2mm activated coarse pellets. These are brilliant in the summer months. Carp absolutely love them. Nice meaty smell, and they're a real good pellet. So all you do, around half a bag will be more than enough for a day's fishing. I'm going to get half a bag, put it into a strainer like that, seal that bag back up. And now all I'm going to do is got some lake water there. Literally going to submerge all of them pellets, give them a stir around in that water. And I've got a little stopwatch. It's important you time how long you soak these pellets for. I like to soak them for around 1.5 minutes. Don't soak them too long, especially in the warmer months, because they will absorb that water a lot quicker than they will, like say, in the winter time. So I'm going to give it 1.5 minutes. I'm going to stir around. Give it 1.5 minutes. We're at 30 seconds already. So I'm going to get to 1.5 minutes. Say that's been 1.5 minutes. I'm going to speed it up, Blue Peter fashion. Now, once my stopwatch has hit 1.5 minutes, all I'm going to do, get the 2 sides to your strainer and literally get all the water off them pellets. Let all that water fully drain off, give it a good shake, put it on the ground, and now all I'll literally do is I'll set up the rest of my gear, I'll get my rod ready and all that sort of stuff, leave them for around 25-30 minutes, and you'll be left with nice fluffy micro pellets that are absolutely brilliant to go around the feeder. And one tip I will give you is make sure you've got a little bowl of water just to your side, because these will dry out throughout the day. Most of the time it's sunny. You won't believe it in England, but it is sunny sometimes, especially in the summer, so they will dry out quite a lot. So all you have to do is just wet your hand like that and give them a run around through in your little bowl. Just wet your hand like that, don't add too much water. You can always add more water, you can't take it out. So just, it almost makes them a little bit more stickier and tackier when you add that little bit of water. So if you are struggling with them going around your method feeder properly, put your hand in the water like that and give them a run through your bowl. And the other bait that I like to use sometimes, not all the time if I'm honest, is ground bait. Now Method Mix is absolutely brilliant, as the name suggests, it does what it says on the tin. Absolutely brilliant around a method feeder. Nice, smelly, meaty ground bait. That can be brilliant, especially for drawing fish into your peg. But 9 times out of 10, I like to use micro pellets around the feeder. I think carp absolutely love them. So I'm going to get back on the box and show you exactly how to load the feeder. Loading the method feeder is very simple, but it's easy to get it wrong. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do it properly. First tip, always use a method mould. Keeps you nice and regulated about how much bait you've got in and around your feeder, and I personally think it's quicker and easier to load it. So first of all, get your 2mm micro pellets, fill the method mould so it's nice and level. I'll give it a nice press down with my thumb, then I'll get my hook bait, place it dead centre in the method mould, right on top of those pellets. Make sure your hook length line is going towards the fatter end of the method mould. As you can see there, my hook length material is almost going backwards into that fatter end of the method mould, because what that means is your hook length isn't going to be trapped in and around that bait. It's going to be sitting nice and free. And then you get some more 2mm pellets and literally sandwich that hook bait in. So I like to give it a couple of loadings like that, thumb it down. So now get your method feeder, place it right dead centre into them pellets and the mould. Get your 2 thumbs like that. Give it a real good squeeze. Don't be afraid of giving it a good squeeze. It's important because the way these micro pellets have been soaked, which you've seen, it's going to release that bait nice and quickly, but it's got to stay on your feeder to get out to where you're casting. So give it a good squeeze, and now this method mould's got a little push silicone bit at the back, and you're left with a perfectly loaded method feeder. So let's get her out there. So now my feeder's in the perfect position and I'm waiting for a bite. I'll quickly run through the hook baits that you're going to need to use when you're doing this style of fishing. I only really like to use 3 different types of hook bait. One's a wafter. I love that for carp. Absolutely brilliant hook bait. Really lightweight hook bait, nice and visual, and they suck it in and you get brilliant hook hauls with wafters, and I think, personally, I think carp absolutely love them. The other hook bait is 6 and 8mm pellets. That can be absolutely brilliant. A 6mm activated coarse match pellet, nice and meaty smell, is a deadly hook bait when you are fishing a method feeder. The other hook bait is 2 and 3 dead red maggots. I don't know what it is about maggots, but I think it's the lightweight texture. I think, especially when you're fishing for medium-sized carp and an odd big F1, maggots is a deadly hook bait. But stick to those 3, and you almost have to pick the right hook bait for each given venue and each given day. If you're getting a lot of small fish, like small roach and stuff like that, use like a pellet or a wafter hook bait. Those are a bit silverfish proof. But if I had to use one hook bait for the rest of my life when I am fishing the method, it'd have to be a wafter. Absolutely love them. Perfect. If you do get little spells where you don't get any liners or you've had a couple of casts without a fish, don't be afraid of reeling in and having 2 or 3 quick casts with your feeder fully loaded like normal, but as soon as your feeder hits the surface, wind back in, do it 2 or 3 times, you're almost baiting up your peg, and that little bit of extra bait will just gather a few more fish into your peg, and that can be a great way of keeping that catch rate consistently ticking over. So I'm going to do exactly that now. I'm going to have 2 or 3 casts. I'll have 2 casts where I'm literally just going to load my feeder up, get it in my mould, and I'm going to chuck in on the spot. And I'm literally going to wind in and do that twice. It's almost like putting another pot of bait in on a pole. That's what I'm thinking. And that noise of the feeder hitting the water, fish on commercials nowadays are so tuned into noise, they hear it and it just forces them into feeding. So I'm going to get another one in, straight in, and now on the third one I'm going to load my feeder, as in I'm going to, like I'd naturally be fishing. So I'm going to get my feeder, load that first layer of bait into the mould, get my hook bait right in the middle, another little layer of micros, give it a real good squeeze, don't be afraid of giving it a good squeeze, press it on the back and you're in. Really handy using a mould, you know you're getting the same level of consistency and it keeps you a bit quicker. I'm going to get right in over where I've put those 2 feeders. Perfect. Right, so now we're fishing. So that what I meant by those 2 feeders is we've actually had 3 lots of feeder noise, bang, 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 and hopefully it's going to bring a few more fish into the peg. Oh, got an indication straight away, so that just shows those 3 feeders going in, that little bit of extra bait has definitely brought a fish in straight away. But you have to be active. It's so easy to be lazy when you're fishing a method feeder or any sort of fishing where you're not shipping out of a pole. It's so easy to sit there and think, oh, it'll be all right, the fish will come. But sometimes, especially on commercials, in the warmer months, you need to make it happen. You need to make that noise, get that bait going in. It's the only way sometimes, because you can just sit there for ages. You're not going to magically draw loads of new fish in just by sitting there and doing nothing. One nice tip about rod positioning, which is very important when you are doing this sort of fishing, don't have your rod too far to your left or your right, as in the angle. As you can see from my setup here, I've got a couple of reapers, so my hands are free, but my rod is almost straight in front of me. It's probably like 11 o'clock. And that's important because you get a real direct connection between your feeder and your tip. And as you can see, I've got an ounce tip in there, so it's not too heavy, so it's going to move my feeder, but it's slightly bent round a bit. And I like that because when the fish does pick up my hook bait, it bolts against the tip. And if I had my rod far left or far right, I think there's too much slack in your line, there's too much stretch in your line, and it's just not as effective as this setup that I've got right now. It's so deadly. When you do get bites, it pulls the rod really, almost like pulls it in. Such an effective way of having your rod set up. Quickly run you through the hardware that you're going to need for this style of fishing. Got a 10-foot rod, so a Ventus 10-foot feeder. It's important you use a nice shortish rod, especially when you're only fishing like, say, 25 metres like we are today. Don't have too long a rod or too short a rod. 10 foot's like the perfect sort of length for up to 30 metres. Any further, obviously use a longer rod. If you are fishing like, say, 16 metres to an island, don't be afraid of using a 9-foot, but for me that 10 foot's absolutely perfect length. Reel wise, 4,000 reel, I've got 8-pound line. Don't mess around with too light a reel line. These fish, as you can see, are really big, they pull really hard, so you've got to use durable line. I've got 8-pound Pulse Pro, bulletproof stuff. And hook length wise, I've got a 12 QM1 on, or 19 Engage. Again, don't mess around with too light a hook length because they are massive fish, they pull so hard, so you don't want to use too light a hook length material. And in terms of how you mount your bait, I've got a wafter on right now, a little 6mm chocolate orange one. It's absolutely lovely size for this size hook and these size fish. If the fish were a little bit bigger, I'd probably use the 8mm one, to be honest, but they seem to be loving this 6mm, and I'm literally mounting it with a bayonet on. It's actually a ready rig, to be honest, so I'm being a bit lazy. But bayonets are important for wafters. If you are using a pellet hook bait, use a little micro band. And obviously if you're fishing with a maggot, just hook it straight on, but that's the hardware you're going to need. The biggest thing I can stress from it is, as you can see how hard this one's pulling, my arm's killing. It's got to be strong enough and durable enough to land these big fish. So don't go too light. Feels an absolute cracker. It's pulling my arm off. Oh, look at that one. Oh, terrible netting. Terrible netting. It's a big fish. Surprised me how big that one was, to be honest. 9.5 pulling hard today. That was like a 1 out of 10 for the netting score. Let's see if this one's a little bit better. Come on. Here we go. This is my time. This is my time to shine. Oh, perfect. That's what I should have done first time. But look at the size of some of these fish that you can catch on this. This method feeder is a joke. I love it. Oh, cracking fish. Hold her up for you. Being very, very lively. Come here, baby. Lovely mirror carp, real scaly banger, as they say. Look at that. Beauty. I've already mentioned about how tuned in fish on commercials are to noise. And one tip I will give you is, just because you are fishing method feeder, don't be afraid of loose feeding over the top. It's a great way of bringing new fish into your peg. So all I'll literally do is get a catapult, some 6mm pellets, and I'll fire them in right over where I'm fishing. Can be a brilliant way of just creating a bit more activity in and around your peg. They hear those pellets going in, and it definitely draws new fish in. Feels another cracking carp. Bit of a weird bite this one, it dropped back, which can happen quite a lot. Oh, it's a lovely common. Make sure you use the tips that I've given you to good effect, hopefully. Getting that bait right is important. Your 2 mils, get that ground bait consistency right, loading the feeder, and make sure you're busy. Because the busier you are, the more noise you create, the more of these big carp you're going to be catching, because they're so tuned into noise. Look at that. What a stunning fish to finish on. But make sure you get on the old method feeder up to Ireland for fish like that. What a beautiful fish. I'm saying, oh, biggest of the day that, easily. Woohoo. Cracker. Not the prettiest carp I've ever caught in my life. A real Makins old warrior, but just shows the size of fish you can catch when you do fish a method. Woohoo. Up to an island, you can catch big carp like this one. Absolute cracker. Well, not a cracker, but a big fish. Good way to finish the day. Hopefully you enjoyed the tips and you'll catch more big carp using a method feeder up to an island.